Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land. It is once again that time of the week, that very special time of week where we come onto your radio dial and we tell you about what's actually going on. See, we dig underneath the headlines. We pierce through that corporate media propaganda to dig down deep until we hit some straight up truth. It is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution. Now, as always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may be. So, again, I want to start off by apologizing. We were not on air last week. That was, I assure you, for very good or at least acceptable reason. Few of us were busy volunteering last week during the huge, horrendous polar vortex. And essentially, a whole bunch of grassroots organizers from all over town had to roll up their sleeves and cobble together some emergency housing / shelter for much of our homeless population. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more in depth later on in the program. Carl Wiseman is going to be joining us around 7. He's was an organizer with the Bronson Park Freedom Encampment, and was also volunteering down at the churches over the course of last week. So we're going to go a little bit into the minutia of what it takes to really get a community solution together when really city and county drops the ball, and what really needs to be done in order for us to have permanent infrastructure so that a bunch of working class people don't have to cobble something together at the last minute when extreme winter cold is coming, because as anybody who studies climate change well enough knows, this is only the beginning. Yes, the weather is going to get worse and worse, unimaginably worse, the longer that you live, and it will never, ever, ever get better. Sorry. That's a very bleak thing to start off the show with, but, you know, like I said, we try to drop those hard truths on this program. Also later on the program, around 6:30, we're going to be broadcasting an interview with a local organizer who is running into some degree of trouble with a local nonprofit regarding housing, in particular her own housing, in particular the housing of her and her children. And we will find out why they say that she's being evicted in 10 days' time, and see if there's anything we, the people of Kalamazoo, can do about it. So both the co-hosts should be here today. I think we're going to start off by talking about something at the national level that I wanted to touch on. Excuse me here, just real quick here. What is it? Yes. So we actually do have some good news, and I wanted to start off with that. And one of the things that we're going to really dive into later on when we're talking about Venezuela. So I didn't take a whole lot of time to watch the State of the Union address. I got some of the highlights. I do plan to eventually watch it. I will say from some of the excerpts I got, tactically, it's going to be very bad if this president gets to own the term endless war, because, frankly, stopping the endless wars is a very popular bipartisan idea, and it'll be interesting to me to see how, the corporate Democrats react to that kind of rhetoric in a State of the Union speech, especially as we're going into the 2020 election. One of two things will happen. Either there will be kind of this political strategic consensus that, okay, all the voters want less war, so this is what we're all going to say, or they will double down on this kind of idea on Trump derangement syndrome and say, oh, well, you know what? If this is something that the orange one likes, then we need to do the opposite. So feel where I'm going with this. We could have a Democratic primary where basically you're going to have a bunch of people up there harping on Trump for withdrawing soldiers from places like Syria and Afghanistan, while at the same time, one, our drones will still be over there blowing people to smithereens, and we're still going to have a lot of our own economic interests in there still doing the quote-unquote good work. However, I could certainly see a situation where the Democrats stupidly try to run to his right on this particular issue and say, like, oh, actually, we do need endless war. I mean, that is kind of like the neocon, neoliberal consensus. If there is one idea that really ties them together and really, holds the neo glue that holds them together, it's their stance on endless war. You have anybody challenging that idea from the left, or unfortunately in this case from the right, they're going to buck against it. And of course, I don't think anybody, please don't lose sight of the fact that, what does that really mean? What does Trump's foreign policy actually mean in real world conditions? Well, it means that we will withdraw a few troops from some of our sites of engagement. But does that mean that the war will be coming to an end? Absolutely not. Because like I said earlier, we're still going to have our drones. We're still going to have our infrastructure there. We're still going to be training and financing various unsavory groups. There's actually a famous blunder a couple years ago where the Pentagon and the CIA were actually arming and training warring factions within the Syrian conflict. What we've also seen under the Trump administration is a just blasé stance when it comes to collateral damage. Now, obviously, if you've listened to our show enough, this is something we've criticized both the Obama and George W. Bush administrations for to some great length and degree. However, what you really need to understand, please, I would recommend you all go to airwars.com, or is it .org? But Air Wars, they do really great coverage on the state of America's drone missile program and our general airstrike warfare in general, and they have some of the most concrete numbers about the casualties that are coming out of places where we are currently engaged, including Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen. Iraq in particular. Afghanistan in particular, has seen some of the most brutal bombing from America these few last years under Trump than they've seen during the entirety of our occupation there, which, by the way, is going on about 20 years at this point, 18 years. Started in 2001. So... So yes, that is my big concern about that. Particularly, you have a lineup with the Democrats going that is very sheepish when it comes to foreign policy. I suppose you could say a thing or two about Tulsi Gabbard, but at the same time, she still supports drone warfare. She also has been very buddy-buddy with people like Benjamin Netanyahu and Narendra Modi, who's a very far-right ideologue, president in India, or prime minister. I can't remember the proper nomenclature. And, while, I guess you could say, obviously, give her credit for criticizing Saudi Arabia. But, in this landscape, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I also wanted to specifically mention in the State of the Union address, one highlight was the orange one and said the S word. So if you were watching the State of the Union, and if you weren't, like me, you didn't really want your brain to rot, you might have missed Donald Trump said, America will never, ever be a socialist nation, to the applause of the Republicans and most of the Democrats. Now, why do I think this is a good thing? Well, again, a lot of credit, wherever you are at on the political spectrum, wherever your tendency of the left is. I think it's undeniable to at least give Bernie Sanders this credit, and this credit would be putting socialism back into the American lexicon. But previously to that, beyond, your former radicals and political science nerds, the general population, this has been kind of locked away from everybody. I like to think of socialism. It's very similar to like some rare weapon in Legend of Zelda. Let's say it's like the Master Sword, and it's been buried away for a millennia, or in this case, since about the McCarthy era, when they basically tried to wipe socialism out of the American imagination to a great degree of success, I should add. And it is a weapon that we are all collectively, especially I'm speaking primarily to people my age, millennials and younger, kind of rediscovering this weapon, this master sword, this socialism, and all of the isms that go along with it, Marxism, etc. And it does, what it represents. And hold on just a sec. I think I've got one of my co-hosts coming through. Be right back. All right, we're back. So Nora is just joining us, and I do believe Lawrence is also on the way.
Hello.
Yeah, should be here any moment. So as I was talking about, what is the significance of, the orange one, I couldn't think of being a better, what is a better representation of late stage capitalism than when the president of your empire is a orange game show host. But what are the implications of him saying the S word, the socialism, during the State of the Union versus say like Bernie Sanders, who, as I said earlier, kind of reintroduced it to the national lexicon a couple years ago. And what it says to me, and, Nora, you definitely chime in on this, I think it speaks to a certain degree of success of the modern socialist movement that, the threat is being named by the capitalist class in explicit terms. Before the last few years, it was primarily, they'd view socialism as just kind of like this non-threatening ideology that, more or less has gone extinct in America. You've seen a huge resurgence of it, and it's starting to make the capitalists clutch their purse a little tighter than I think they used to. I think there is a collective sense that, socialism, I think it's really kind of become the rallying cry to repeal and get back. And of course, this is without going into the big Marxist analysis on it, but it is about kind of pushing back against the Powell memo and his counter-revolution that we have been feeling since the 70s. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Powell memo. He basically wrote the strategy for corporate America on how to dismantle unions and basically reel back the years of hard-fought leftist progress in this country. So yes, the S word has been said at the State of the Union. And I think that means that they're a little scared. They're a little just a little bit. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Nora. But
I mean, I think it's true, really. Like the fact that like more and more politicians are like having like this explicitly either pro-capitalist or anti-socialist rhetoric in more of their tweets and speeches is kind of indicative that they're that's starting to make them nervous, you know? Mm-hmm. But I think what like concerned me during the State of the Union, like in this and many other of the little sound bites that you might have heard in some of the highlights, because first of all, why would anybody want to watch this guy just lie for an hour and a half? Like, I really do not have the patience for that.
Yeah.
But like, so many people were just like, the politicians were just like cheering and clapping with them, like, on so many other things. I mean, yeah, sure, most of it was coming from the Republicans, obviously, but like, it's just gross to see like how much of our Congress is just yes men to this regime. It's really disheartening.
Yeah, and something like a kind of a coy remark. I posted this on my own page today. It's like, you noticed all the Democrats clapping right along when Trump is like, oh, we're never going to have a socialist country. And it really does show you that, like, liberals prefer right-wing fascists or proto-fascists to the actual left. And this is something we try to, like, really hit home on a lot during the show. And, I'm not just being, like, blasé here. Like, historically, our government has been more willing to work with right-wing authoritarians than democratically elected socialist governments.
And to bring that back to the discussion on Venezuela, like, see, here I thought that the U.S. would just continue to sanction them and cut off their supplies to make the country fail on purpose so that, the pundits on TV could be like, look, see, it doesn't work. You can't do socialism. But clearly they're going for regime change now, and we'll see how much better off they'll be afterwards.
There was a headline in The Economist that it's just like, I think we'll get to more in depth about Venezuela in a few minutes, but just like how obvious they're being about it this time. It's like there's a headline in The Economist how, like they freaking said it. They are betting on, the sanctions making life so hard in Venezuela that the Maduro government will give up. Literally said like. They think they're hedging their bets that the Maduro government will give up before the people of Venezuela starve. So in one hand, they are taking responsibility for the food shortages in Venezuela in the same breath that they're saying, like, we're using it as political leverage in order to make this coup happen. Okay, I'm sorry. Lawrence, I want you to chime in. We've already brought up like a slew of topics, so just, I guess, start from the beginning and work your way up.
Yes, a while Lawrence has appeared, ladies and gentlemen. All right, first of all, with the State of the Union, I was having a conversation on Facebook about this. I like the fact that we had 3 different responses to the State of the Union: Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, and Bernie Sanders. In my opinion, it was like watching a ball get spiked in volleyball, because the president was doing said and did a bunch of lies, and Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams, recovered the ball, prepped it, and Bernie Sanders spiked it for that 20-minute dissertation on how how the president was lying for 90 minutes and what we should be doing about it and fighting for it. Like, all three of the responses I thought were decent. I thought Bernie's was the best out of the 3. But yeah, that was, if you watch that 90-minute catastrophe of a speech, I was talking to one of my friends about it. I was like, dog, if we had a drinking game about how many times he was going to mention Venezuela, how many times he was going to mention the gang, that one gang, MS-13, how he was going to mention late-term abortions, and I was like, how he was going to demagogue about women, and him not mentioning climate change accurately. I was like, dog, you would have to take 6 shots. I was like, you'll have to take 6 shots
Just from the highlights.
Yeah, just from and I was like, bro, that's 6. That's 6 right there. Yeah. If we could keep going on, you would get alcohol poisoning doing the drinking game, watching the State of the Union. And the thing that I think that makes me upset is that this man did the bare minimum. He didn't whip his junk out in front of the Congress. He didn't give out state secrets. He did the bare minimum. Yeah. He did a okay speech from a white right-wing perspective, and he gets all the praise in the world. Meanwhile,
lowered expectations.
Right. Meanwhile, you have people like AOC who are sitting there, and Bernie Sanders sitting there, and they're looking at him like, I cannot believe. Like, can you, like, and they have this.
Yeah,
am I just saying?
I saw the pictures. Yeah.
Right. So just okay. So the State of the Union. Okay, the State of the Union was supposed to give us some idea of hope and change or moving forward. The Republicans demagogue and did fear, because that's the reason why Trump beat all the establishment candidates that he faced. Because the one thing that studies have shown, the one thing that Republicans respond to is fear. And that's what he did. He fearmongered about Mexicans. He fearmongered about Venezuela. He fearmongered about MS-13. He talked about a killing that happened with a migrant that came to the country, but he didn't talk about the other massive mass shooting that happened in Nevada. Right. So he did his job. I'm peddling fear, and the only way that we can not have fear is unity if y'all will stop investigating me.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Which was I was like, first of all, you're talking about unity? You got the nerve. You got the nerve. That's like, dog, that's like...
You know, Nixon was a hell of a lot more popular than Trump was when they impeached him.
Donald Trump talking about unity. It's like Chris Christie trying to tell you how to diet. Like bruh. Like, what? You really gonna tell me how you exercise, bro? You gonna tell me about what you've been doing? Like, so for real? Yeah. For real? We gonna have this conversation? The thing is that made me upset is a lot of the headlines afterwards of people basically giving him a pass, and I'm like, he sat there and lied. And the fact that and this is the reason why I'm glad Bernie gave his response. Not saying that Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris didn't bring up any actual substantive things, like a lot of
actual policies.
Well, no, here's the thing: Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris, they brought up substance, but a good I'm not gonna lie, a good portion of it was a lot of platitudes and cliches, but. They did, like Stacey Abrams brought up voter suppression. She brought voter suppression.
I saw she brought up the unpaid government workers.
She talked about that. She talked about the migrants at the border. Same thing with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris talked about that. They touched on, but they didn't talk about policy. They didn't bring like specificity, more of it. It was basically your normal Democratic response. Bernie right out the gate, hitting you with substance and facts, and Bernie did what Bernie does. He did what we love. Mm-hmm. He came in and was like, I can hit y'all with platitudes and cliches. We ain't got time for that. So let's get to this work.
And by the way, that's been his role the last like two. Is this Trump's third?
This is his second year of his second or third year doing response.
This administration is like what year is it?
No. The thing is, Bernie's whole stick was okay. Let's get to this as one of my favorite battle rappers will say. Let's get to these body bags. Policy. Let's get domestic policy. Body bag. Foreign policy. Body bag. Trump, I'm gonna take all of your lies and I'm putting that body bag in a body bag. Like that's and that's basically what he did. He was like, one of the first facts he drops. The average American, when it comes to their paycheck, and you equate and you and you take add inflation to it, make the same amount of money as they did in 1974. Facts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? 80% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. Facts. This stat that blew my mind. 25 hedge fund, the top 25 hedge fund people on Wall Street made this equivalent of 145,000 kindergarten teachers. Like what? Like again?
It's surprising, but
just dropping jewels, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like and I'm not gonna lie, because I sat up and saw the whole thing. I really wanted to watch the story of Soul Train that was on BET. I really did, but I sat and watched the State of the Union and all of it. Like, from watching Kamala Harris, then Trump's speech, then Stacey Abrams, I'm not gonna lie, by the time Stacey Abrams was done, I was ready to go to sleep. And then Bernie came in and he started dropping jewels, and I was like, all right, I'm awake now. Let's, right. And I'll stay up another 20 minutes watching Bernie. And I'm just like, all right, cool. But I think the thing is that I saw on articles online, and I also shared this, about Bernie stealing her shine, or Kamala Harris stealing Stacey Abrams' shine. A wise woman once told me that stars shine no matter what other stars are around it. So the fact that you had Stacey Abrams give the official Democratic response of itself was great. The fact that Kamala Harris went before her and went before the speech was fine. But you need multiple perspectives. And we need to have not only multiple perspectives, but we need to have actual ideas and policies and facts that push us forward. And it's amazing that I was more excited for the specificity that Bernie was giving, and I was very happy to see my lovely black sisters do their thing. And it was a really substantive night. It was a good night. I thought it was awesome.
See, the whole idea of stealing someone's shine, that wasn't really a thing that we'd see as much during the response to the State of the Union last year. Yeah. Because, but I mean,
we did. No, we did. We saw.
Really?
No. The thing is that you had AOC. She gave a response on Rachel Maddow, and you had Bernie Sanders also give a response after Nancy and Chuck Schumer gave the official Democrat response.
Oh yeah.
Right. So they stole their shine, quote unquote. But you know what I'm saying? It was a garbage response that they gave, and then AOC in a 3-minute set on Rachel Maddow's show just went to work.
Like, I remember that. That was good.
It was, but I'm just like, you can't steal somebody's shine. Like,
did AOC get cut off on MSNBC on Rachel's show because she wasn't talking about Russia enough?
No. Rachel actually had her on there and had her do the thing. So I'm like, she did her thing. The thing that makes me upset about the whole conversation is that there was a black article that I shared that was framing it from that perspective of that you're turning the lights down on.
Oh yeah, I did see that. It was the Roots.
Yeah. And I love Roots. I love them wholeheartedly. But that article was absolutely garbage. Like, it was absolutely garbage. And if Bernie's stealing her shine, then that means Kamala Harris was also stealing her shine too. So you're telling me that a black woman was stealing a black woman's shine? Okay, that's cool. That's cool. You're telling me that she doesn't have a voice that she can use to push ideas and policy? Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
I think for those of you playing the home game, what this is, that what we're describing is when kind of the centrist kind of establishment wing of the Democratic Party attempts to use identity politics against the left. Now, honestly, from where I'm sitting, like, it is actually getting a little more difficult for them to do this in this round of elections. Last time you did, you had Bernie Sanders. He was an old white man. He made a couple of gaffes, whatnot. This time, I think it's a little bit more difficult to do that because, I mean, it's like you just said. It's like, we've got people like AOC in there, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. You have people representing the progressive agenda who actually look like the constituency that wants the progressive agenda. So it's kind of hard. It's getting harder for the establishment media to play those kind of groups against each other. At least from where I'm sitting.
I mean, this is the reason why I get upset about identity politics. When you want to talk about identity politics historically, the reason why we have the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, Fair Housing Act is because of identity politics that progressives were fighting for. This is true. When you weaponize identity politics the way that they're doing in this article, then you are literally pissing on the people who you would have back you when it comes to actually pushing policy, because you are undermining the people who support you. Bernie Sanders and his policy, his platform, everything that he talks about would positively affect our not only American community but the African American community. If we're going to talk about actual how things like Medicare for all, free college and tuition, a living wage, ending the wars, a Green New Deal, all these things. The problem is, who's actually more in line with the donors' ideas? So when you hear the speeches from Kamala Harris and also Stacey Abrams, and I love Stacey Abrams, I love them both, there's a reason why the specificity that they could have talked about, like how Donald Trump cut $1 million, I think it was $1 million or $1 billion from Medicaid.
1.2 trillion. Oh no, I thought you were talking about the tax cuts.
No. That, and also the tax cuts.
Yeah.
But the fact that you could mention Donald Trump, you talk about how you want to fight the opiate crisis, but you cut $1 billion out of Medicare. You cut $1 billion. $1 billion. So it's like, are you kidding me? Yeah. They could talk about these things, but the story that I shared in the article, the Democratic Party still wants to cater to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Nancy Pelosi and her people went and talked to Blue Cross Blue Shield about how they're going to stand united against Medicare for all.
Yeah, and just to tie in another story that is kind of along the same vein, so it's been kind of bouncing around Twitter and other social media platforms. A lot of former Trump supporters, voters, are getting their tax returns. They're not very happy about them because a lot of them are either not getting as much back as they usually do, or now actually, in fact, owe the government money. You're talking about the Trump supporters who are crying about the tax. Yeah, because here's what happened. They always hear, tax cuts for the rich, but it'll help the middle class too. No, here's what happened. 2017 GOP tax cut leads to spiking federal deficits thanks to its generous benefits to corporations, but many middle-class Americans are winding up having to pay more because the bill eliminated multiple deductions used by middle-class families to lower their annual tax payments. Among other things, the tax bill ended deductions for taxes paid to state and local governments while massively increasing the amount of money you must donate to qualify for a charitable giving donation. And I want to say, this is exactly what we all said would happen about a year ago. Even to, our reactionary aunts and uncles, it's going to save us money. It's like, this year, next year, and the years that follow, you're going to start actually paying a lot more in taxes. And unfortunately, it's not even having to wait.
Already they're having to pay more in taxes. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how many of these Trump supporters are actually paying attention, but clearly they're not, haven't been known to be apt to pay attention to facts. But
of course, the Democrats
or poor white people tears. I mean, I like to bathe in them.
Drink them up.
Here's the problem, and I shared this on. Here's the thing and I shared it on my Facebook page. If you supported Trump and you supported tax cuts and you believe that tax cuts for the rich was going to help you, and then you realize that these tax cuts are now taking away money that you were looking forward to help you pay your bills, you are not the victim here. You were a part of the bank robbery. You got caught.
Yeah. And when your friends tried to tell you, you're helping these people rob a bank, you're like, nah.
The bank was your own pocket. Yeah. So since you called that news alternative facts, please enjoy your alternative tax return. Like real talk. Like I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But like you get alternative tax returns this year, like that in the next 10 years.
Fake tax returns, sad.
Right.
So, if you were one of the unfortunate people to have recently gotten an argument with a Trump supporter online or maybe in person, maybe they'll justify their decision yeah, sure, maybe these other policies are bad, but it's cool because we all got tax cuts, right?
No.
Yeah, let's see how many of them are still holding on to that aspect.
The average millionaire,
Yeah.
if my numbers were correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the average millionaire got around $680 something thousand.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Around a good $600K. They got an extra $600K. The average American that makes less than $30,000 a year, the average American got around 25 cents. So yeah,
25 cents. So like
25 cents.
So enough to get a gumball.
Right, you know what I'm saying? No,
man, everybody need like 50 cents to go to the arcade, man. Yeah.
No, there's some gumball machines that's 35 cents now. So you can't even get gumball now.
Dang,
gumball inflation.
Yeah.
What does this country come to?
I did want to tie it into something you were talking about earlier, and fact of the matter is, so this is really big. This, if you had strategic wit, you could beat Trump over the head with this. Of course, the Democrats are not, because majority,
they don't
speak
talk
for the
about
majority.
Policies, first off,
well, speaking for the majority, a lot of the same people who paid the Republicans for this tax cut pay their Democratic colleagues as well. So I think that's a large part of the reason you don't hear a lot of the mainstream Democrats piping up about this, because again, the tax cuts benefits the people who pay them as well.
Well, I mean that's the thing. Why do you think Howard Schultz's whole thing is we can't give you health care, but the GOP tax cuts are a good thing?
Yeah,
Howard Schultz is literally going on trying to defend the GOP, trying to defend tax cuts for the rich. Yeah. Joe Biden, who hasn't announced yet, but he was recently in a video talking about how he agrees with Paul Ryan about cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden, the vice president of he was the vice president of the Democratic Party, agrees with Paul Ryan that we should cut Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare.
Well, if you think about it, that was part of Obama's plan during a late point of his years. He was trying to pay for
grand bargain.
That's it, and that's something that the establishment's tried to do for a very long time. I mean, George W. tried to do it. Bill Clinton was going to do it before the Lewinsky scandal kicked him out. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. What's amazing to me is that the thing that are Republicans' wet dreams, they do not get passed unless Democrats do it. But the things that are more progressive, like making sure cars have seatbelts, creating the EPA, all those things are Democrats fighting Republicans to push policy that would affect our people.
Well, more specifically, it was activists fighting them.
But I'm saying it's progressives. It's activists fighting to protect human beings. And I hope we get to the story about Nancy Pelosi and how they have basically are going to shiv Medicare for all.
We can talk about right now.
Yeah,
actually,
let's do that. How about one good thing, one bad thing? Let's start with a good thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Dana Nessel story. Maybe then talk about Nancy, and if we can squeeze it in, I would also like to talk a little bit about Venezuela. So I'll go. Yep, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about so Dana Nessel has been doing some good stuff. Good thing we got her in. Well, what am I talking about specifically? So I'm going to read this from an article, Bridge, Michigan. It was published on February 4th. In 1 month, Dana Nessel erases many of Bill Schuette's federal pursuits. So, Dana Nessel capped a dizzying first month in office by reversing the state's position in more than a dozen cases previously steered by her Republican predecessor. Nessel aligned with 3 other states and Governor Whitmer in seeking to join a federal lawsuit protecting the Affordable Care Act, which previous AG Bill Schuette long opposed. And just for like some background on that, there are a lot of Republican-dominated states, a lot of conservative state governments that have actively pursued basically challenging the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. Again, we all think we need Medicare for all, but as far as what is in Dana Nessel's wheelhouse, being able to prevent right-wingers from stripping of us of the health care that we do have is a very big step. Also pulled the state from 8 cases related to abortion, LGBTQ rights, separation of church and state. In addition, she withdrew from cases challenging federal environmental regulations and filed legal briefs advancing for mandatory birth control coverage.
Yeah, if you look at the list of the state versus federal lawsuits that our state has been involved in for at least up to 8 years with our Republican controlled government, like she's all got us out of that, and that's really fantastic. And we'll see what this actually leads to. I'm sure we've seen like quite a bit of this in other states around the country that recently flipped their state governments, but it's good news to hear. Yeah,
definitely. Excuse me. And then I also wanted to bring up this local article here real quick. And this is actually something we've been talking about a little bit with some of our colleagues. There was a report about KPS, and as a former student there, I was actually kind of shocked to hear this. I think Lawrence forgot the card. Needs to be let in. So this is an article about how Kalamazoo schools have actually had 0 expulsions under their new restorative discipline system. So this is something, we've interviewed people on the show, Tandy Moore, who just ran for school board and won. What it means is when you do restorative justice is a concept that's really related to not having a punitive model. It's about trying to basically bring a holistic approach when you are interacting with a student who's having like behavioral problems. You ask the questions like, well, why are these problems occurring? What can we do to alleviate them? What can the school do to actively work with the student? So it details a little bit of this in the article. Restorative practices like daily class meetings or conflict resolution meetings allow students to remain in school and learn resolution skills, Bergen said. This is Nikenge Bergen, Director of Student Services. Students learn to resolve differences while considering the perspective of others using skills like peer mediation. And it goes on to talk about under former disciplinary practices, teachers, administrations, and administrators doled out consequences to students who misbehaved, and everyone moved forward, she said. But that model does not correct underlying issues, Bergen said. There has to be a restorative conversation, she said. There has to be a way to help that young person feel like they are accepted, valued, and loved. Though the number of suspensions has stayed consistent over the years, the number of expulsions and exclusions has decreased, according to Bergen's presentations. Exclusions are suspensions longer than 10 days, but shorter than 180. From the 2010 to 11 school year through 2013 through 2014 school year, the district averaged 66 exclusions or expulsions per year. However, from the 2014 to 15 and 2016 to 17 school year, the district reported issuing 47 exclusions or expulsions. For the 2017 through 18 school year, the district reports it issued 13 exclusions but no expulsions. However, our board member, Tandy Moore, is actually interviewed in this article, and as one of the reasons I voted for her personally It's always trying to dig a little bit deeper. She said, sounds like a positive thing on the surface. I do have to wonder, though, how this is actually impacting our school culture, Moore said. If this is actually making an impact within our school buildings. While this sounds positive, the experiences of our teachers and our students, our staff, and the reflection of our school climate doesn't reflect that so well. So yeah, again, I think this could represent positive development. Obviously, I think more needs to continue to be done. You can't always rest on our laurels. Again, I wanted to quote her a little bit further down in the interview. Funding issues mean programs like from organizations like communities and schools in Kalamazoo are limited cannot help every student. Tandy Moore said, "I think they are effective. I think they are effective when we can get to students." Moore said, "It's not something that is available to every student in every building." And with that, I think it's important to understand, too, that while these lowered exclusions, expulsions do represent a good thing, again, it's a continual process. And, as she said, we got to make sure that while this holistic approach is good, we need the supports for it. And we need to continue making sure that our after-school programs are well-funded. Because, again, having these extra activities, it could be one of the most important things to keep students occupied and to kind of inhibit behavioral problems. And again, there's a lot of stuff that goes through a student's head when they're at school, why they may be acting up, issues at home, drug, alcohol problems, et cetera, and you need that extra help and extra infrastructure in place to make sure it really is every student is getting a quality education and getting the quality services that they need. Sorry, any thoughts on that from y'all? I know I mostly kind of took pivot with that article.
No, it's all right, but I did notice a follow-up article being written that there's still some behavioral problems with the students, and I can't really speak to that because I've never been to KPS honestly, but a lot of these problems they very well could come from home. I hope that they find solutions to them one way or another. But we'll see what happens. It's great news that nobody's getting expelled.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe in expulsion as much as having the parent or guardian come into the classroom with the student. I believe that it's more. Mostly because of I'm getting this framing from my father, who was a principal for multiple years, who was a teacher for multiple years, and when you have the parents actually there in the classroom, or are having alternatives than to send them home. I mean, there are certain things that you're just gonna get penalized and go home for. There's certain things that you just cannot do, but at the same time, I believe in the alternative ways of reaching kids, and a lot of times. We also have to realize that a lot of these kids go home hungry, man. The only time that they eat is when they're at school. A lot of time we take for granted a lot of times that a lot of kids are homeless, that they're either couch surfing or they're in shelters. We have to take into consideration the other factors that are going on in the lives of these students that may not have nothing to do with them actually being at school, but will affect their schooling, and we have to look at how to curb a lot of those other factors to reach and engage with these students and also their families, man. We have to. Education is a community thing, man. It's not just. Right. It's not just a. You're going to school for 8 hours and getting your education. It is a community process.
Yeah,
that's really insightful.
Yeah, no, super true. And me and Lawrence both went to Norix in high school. Oh, yeah. And I think it is really important to underscore that Yeah, class 06. Not to, he's definitely not rest on their laurels with this number here, and understand too that, it's like you said, Lawrence, just because the school might be doing something that is having a positive result doesn't mean that it can be a substitute for community engagement. Because that's really that is how you really put students first and really help them with their education. And if they do have a bad home life, giving them that alternative, having those resources for them as well.
But it's not just that. Like I was it's also engaging in how students learn. Some students are not audio learners, some students are not visual learners, they might be kinesthetic learners. So it's engaging. It's a phrase that Killer Mike used on the Young Turks that I thought was very insightful. Engage me at my level of interest so you can expose me to greater ideals later. So when we are dealing with the youth, dealing with kids, not just high school kids, but just whatever, you engage them at their level of interest. For little kids, it's easier because little kids are constantly learning, constantly wanting to mess with things, constantly want to not break stuff, but take apart stuff and put back stuff. So they're into science and learning and stuff. High school kids, they may not be, but there's a way that you can engage them to want to get something out of it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I'm saying. You want to engage people at their level of interest, so you can expose them to greater ideas later. And I actually believe in that. Like, you know what I'm saying? That because I was one of those kids. I was a kid that learned differently than everybody else, but I had good grades. But a lot of times I had good grades not because I was doing the homework, it's just because I was aced the test. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of my teachers knew this. When knew this, because they was like, all right, Lawrence. They was like, Lawrence, we're gonna work with you. We understand that you can ace the test. We understand that you retain information. We get that.
All right, so
we still need you to do your homework, bro.
So I'm thinking about 15 or so. I want to invite our friend Carl on to join the conversation. And we'll go over some housing and homeless issues that got brought up in last week's Cold Snap. But there's one huge story that this is like the one big international story that if we had done a show about last week, I'm sure we would have really hit on. I wanted to spend some time talking about Venezuela, and
shout out to what was that, Ryan Grimm that went up? No, I don't know. It wasn't Ryan Grimm.
Probably Glenn Greenwald.
No, it was like Ryan Grimm. Let me see if I can find the story because I shared it on our page. Shout out to whoever this journalist was who went on Capitol Hill to ask them, are we meddling in Venezuela? No, it was Mr. Blumenthal from the Gray Zone. It was Mr. Blumenthal from the Gray Zone, and asked us, it asked politicians on the Hill, were we meddling in Venezuela? Is U.S. meddling in Venezuela a good thing?
Yeah.
And the answers that these politicians gave is so dumb.
Yeah.
Was so dumb. Like, oh my God, I was so upset watching this video. Because, think about this for a second, folks. If Russia was to declare Nancy Pelosi the president of the U.S., or and other governments, not just Russia, but China and Canada and Mexico and all these other countries backed it, how would we feel about that? How would Americans react to that? How would our government react to that? Because that's literally what happened. And also the hypocrisy. We're meddling and backing a coup in Venezuela. We're meddling in their election and their governmental process. Meanwhile, we said that Russia interfered with ours, and that what we have is legit, but what they have is not. Like, it's literally lazy intellectualism to believe that you can say that we back the coup and we back the sovereignty, or we back the the people of Venezuela when 80% of the people in Venezuela does not want Americans to interfere with their government.
Yeah.
That latest polling just showed. So it's insane. It's insane. And if you understand the history of America's involvement with foreign governments, especially in South America, then you know how the story is going to play out.
And they're being very transparent about their motives this time around. Like, John Bolton and Mike Pompeo have both started talking openly about oil. We mentioned earlier in the show how The Economist ran a headline that literally said Guaido and I believe it was either Pompeo or Bolton, but they mentioned one of them specifically said, are betting that the coup will happen before the sanctions starve out the Venezuelan people. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what the headline said. And for a lot of people, this week has been all about I need to get a primer on Venezuela. And look, we'll say right now, especially the issues domestically that are happening there on the ground, they are very complex. I am not about to act like I am an expert on Venezuela or even the Bolivarian Revolution. However, I did want to mention, of you out there, there's just been a glut of information out there, so let's curate it just a little bit so you can try to find some folks who are getting as close to the truth as possible. I highly recommend, there was a podcast by The Real News from January 27th, Attempted Coup in Venezuela. They've got Abby Martin, Bryn Wilpert, Paul J., and it's probably the best summary and most intelligent conversation I've heard about the dynamics in Venezuela.
Some recent Jimmy Dore videos too.
Yep, and then Democracy Now! For basically all that first week, we're doing some really good analytical coverage on this issue. And I guess there were just a few things I wanted to hit on about that a lot of people weren't talking about. And, this kind of speaks to what you were saying, Lawrence, with look at our history in these parts of the world. Because I've actually had conversations with a couple of the people in the Venezuelan right. And their talking point is well, what do you expect us to do? Why shouldn't we accept this help from America? Well, here's my Exhibit A. So let's talk a little bit about Elliot Abrams, the new U.S. Special Envoy to Venezuela. Now, this should come as an absolute shock to nobody who listens to our show on the regular, but this guy's got a pretty shady past, especially when it comes to Central America. So he was key in the Reagan administration when they were basically abetting what a court recently ruled was a genocide in Guatemala. When the U.S. was backing the army of El Salvador in a series of death squad assassinations and massacres, and when the U.S. was invading Nicaragua with a Contra force that went after what one U.S. general described as quote-unquote soft targets, meaning things like civilians and cooperatives. Later, he came back during the George W. Bush administration. He joined the National Security Council and was key man in implementing the U.S. policy of backing Israeli attacks against Gaza. Get a little more international atrocity under his belt there. When the U.S. refused to accept the results of the Gaza elections, where Hamas defeated Fatah in a vote, and instead Abrams and company backed a war operation to overturn the results of the election, backing the forces of Mohammed Dalan. And as some commentators have said, Abrams, he's not a Trump guy. He represents traditional, established U.S. foreign policy. And well, he sure does. Sorry, it's some gallows laughter there. But yeah, so basically what that goes to illustrate is, if you had any doubts that this was the worst kind of American intervention, there it is. This is the kind of caliber of person that they have decided should be in charge of our relations towards Venezuela at this moment. Somebody who literally has a career as a CIA jackal, going into Central America's backyards and staging the very kind of coup that we are seeing right now.
I think one thing that's also important to consider when talking about this coup is, first of all, the fact that Nicolas Maduro has a higher approval rating than most Western heads of state do. Like, and they won, and he won the election on a higher percentage, certainly more than Donald Trump did. And like, also the fact that this planned intervention has a lot to do with reestablishing U.S. control over the region, because governments like China have been investing pretty heavily into South America, and in a way, like, helping Bolsonaro get elected was part of like the U.S. pushing back on that, because they're very clearly two fascists that are very deeply in bed with each other, and with the whole thing with WhatsApp pushing him to power, like we are all aware how much Facebook is working with NATO to people who regularly listen to this show. Now, this is like by getting into Venezuela, by getting those oil deposits, they can exercise a crazy amount of control over the region that they might have not been able to in recent history. But even if the U.S. doesn't do it directly, then like Brazil just might do it. When Bolsonaro's inauguration speech talked about like how they're going to push back against socialism in Venezuela, and it's concerning, and it makes me worry if there's going to be, later on attempted coups in Uruguay and Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for standing up for Venezuela, the incumbent Venezuelan leader who was democratically elected more than most Western leaders, I'll reiterate.
I mean, it was our former president that said they had one of the best Jimmy Carter's the one that said something about Venezuela.
So he and the UN have basically gone in and inspected Venezuela's election as recently as 2013, or maybe even more recently, 2015. But the report you're referring to, 2013, Jimmy Carter was quoted on record saying they have one of the best, most verifiable election systems on the planet. And in fact, their election integrity historically has been basically voted up as like a gold standard for the rest of the world for many years. Now that has declined in recent years. However, I think it's worth pointing out that some of the most recent information that we have about the validity of their elections. So what America is trying, and much of the Western world is trying to portray, is that this last election was completely illegitimate, that Maduro somehow cheated it. But I haven't seen any actually hard evidence of, like, how does a nation go from being having one of the best election systems in the world to being completely rigged in the span of 5 years? Now, I'm not saying that can't happen, but there hasn't really been any concrete evidence presented to us on how this actually occurred. The main reports that are talking about the illegitimate nature of the most recent election are from a lot of right-wing and corporate think tanks. So even then, you guys, like, these sources are kind of dubious to begin with. So,
and a lot of those, there's what their logic that they're going off of is, Maduro couldn't have won by that big of a margin. That's because the opposition largely boycotted it and had most of the opposition leaders back out of the presidential race at last minute. So that it would look sketchy how much he won by. But
let's be clear. We're not endorsing Maduro. We don't like Maduro. Maduro is not cool. He is not.
There's no good guys in this situation.
Yeah, there's no good guys in this situation. But breaking international law and orchestrating a coup because we do not like the leader of said country is shady. It's absolutely shady, and the fact that our country is literally doing so openly is a problem. Like, as much as I don't like Maduro, I don't think us sanctioning the country in the average person that lives in Venezuela as being hurt by our sanctions is the right thing to do. Hey, your country has a problem. You know what we're gonna do? We're going to cut resources so you can work harder. It's like, hey, you're starving. I can see that you're starving. How about I don't give you food?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't logically make sense. Lee Camp talked about this on Redacted Tonight last Friday, and his whole first segment was about Venezuela. After Venezuela wanted to get off of the U.S. dollar and move to the petrodollar. Now all hell broke loose. Same thing that you saw with Gaddafi. I don't like Gaddafi either, but it seems like when countries no longer want to be associated with the U.S. dollar, it seems like we now want to take over that country.
Yeah.
Like
Another interesting recent example when Iran decided to start moving off the U.S. dollar and switch to the euro for its international trade currency. That was very shortly before the Iran nuclear deal was scrapped by President Trump.
Yeah.
So,
and I did want to speak a little bit to kind of what we said about Maduro specifically. I think it's important to understand, like, I feel like there's been a lot of discussion in socialist circles about, like, we need to extend solidarity to Venezuela, and then talking about, like, is it okay to criticize the Maduro government from the left?
Yes.
And I think it's like, yes, it is. Of course it is. Here's the thing with, like, the Maduro government, and just kind of cutting through a lot of the propaganda here, is that at its core, they're not a very popular socialist government, but the main zeitgeist down in Venezuela is like, they're more mad at Maduro for mismanaging socialism for the fact that he's doing socialism. And of course, the press wants to conflate those things because the opposition. Here's the thing. Maduro's unpopular, but the opposition is even less popular because what they want even less than mismanaged socialism is well-managed neoliberalism. The majority of working people in Venezuela do not want that. So it's almost like Maduro, to a lot of Venezuelans, especially working class ones, he's kind of like the lesser of two evils, which American voters should be quite familiar with.
I mean, what it is that you have a situation where America wants to take control of the resources and economy of a country that has a lot of oil. And America, if you got oil and you ain't on the American dollar, we coming.
Yeah, we coming. Yeah. Looks like Venezuela could use some freedom.
Right. And you're not. And you're not capitalist society either. We coming.
Yeah.
We coming. It's America. Yeah, here to save the day. Yeah, no, but the problem. This is the issue that I have with it, and this is my little larger issue that I have. And cause I said it earlier. If another country did this to us, would we be okay with it? And the fact that we have politicians right now. Please watch that video from the Gray Zone. We have politicians who are talking out of both sides of their mouths, or they will not give an answer because they don't want to mess up their political connects, who want to get to that oil and get to that money that's down there, and saying something and not saying. This is why people like Tulsi Gabbard, Ro Khanna, I salute them because they came out and was like, nah, what we're doing is wrong, y'all tripping.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What we're doing is wrong. We're meddling in another country. We don't want another country meddling with us. While we are the sole superpower, since we're the sole superpower, we can get away with this. No, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That basically, if you listen to a lot of politicians, we are above international law, and that's how we're acting.
Yeah.
And this is wrong. Like it's like we are now above international law, and we are tripping. Point blank. Period.
All right. Any other thoughts, Nora, before we go to break?
Hashtag hands off Venezuela. Coups are bad.
Yeah.
Choking a country to death is bad. Don't do it.
Yep.
Tell your president.
All right. Okay, we will be right back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, your only source for political revolution.
This is George W. Bush, and you're listening to 89.1 WIDR, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Kalamazoo. You know what you're listening to, Kalamazoo, Michigan, man. What are you, stupid?
Stay tuned for Wider's weekly RSO Spotlight on WIDR Kalamazoo.
Hi, Hi, my name's Tori. I'm the president of the Criminal Justice Student Association, also known as CJSA. CJSA is an RSO on Western Michigan's campus that establishes a network among students who have an interest in criminal justice through events and speakers. We meet every other Monday at 7 p.m. in the Bernhardt Center. To find out more information about the Criminal Justice Student Association, follow us on Instagram at WMUCJSA.
This has been our weekly RSO Spotlight on WIDR Kalamazoo. For more information on how to spotlight your RSO, head to WIDRFM.org.
Hello, everybody. We'll be right back. We're going to have Carl on in just a moment. I'll be getting him all plugged in. Hold on just a moment. Hey, Carl, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. I'm about to get you plugged in and get you on the air. Okay. All right. So we're joined by Carl Wiseman, who is was a big organizer with the Bronson Park Freedom Encampment. Well, it still is a thing, of course. And actually just brought you on as somebody who's an organizer in the community. Talk a little bit about the cold snap that happened last week. What went into basically trying to save a lot of our folks in the community from the cold. And, of course, talk about some of the deeper political issues surrounding them. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Wiseman. I don't know if there's any other introduction you would like to give, good sir.
No, that's about it. Basically, I kind of an activist speaking for those who have pretty much lost their voice or don't have the background to speak or the ability to speak for themselves.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just start from because I know you were directly involved in a lot of the organizing last week at the churches. So I just kind of want to hear from your perspective. How did you get involved in that? How were you part of that conversation? And what are some of the key things you witnessed over the course of that week that really struck you?
Well, the reason that got me involved is I myself was homeless for about 2.5 years, not due to drug addiction or any of the other beliefs that most people think is the leading cause of homelessness, basically because housing prices are too high, jobs pay too little, and once you end up homeless, it's hard to get out of that hole because a lot of renters around here, once you stay at the gospel mission or you end up homeless, nobody wants to rent to you because you have that label, that title, that stereotype attached to you. So it makes it difficult for people in Kalamazoo and basically nationwide to get into housing and pull themselves up or lift themselves up by their bootstraps, as so many people like to say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where are you going to get the bootstraps when they shut the bootstrap factory down? So you talked a bit about having to stay at the mission. So for those at home, and I know a lot of my listeners might already be keyed into this, but obviously it was deathly cold that week. We needed to basically do some emergency shelter, particularly for people who had been barred from the mission, even though I know they said they were going to be basically welcoming everyone in. But for those at home who aren't really in the know, why would you need extra shelter? Why wouldn't the gospel mission just be taking everybody in? Why would they be kicking people out? Again, I think this is going to kind of relate to the conditions at the mission, but could you explain to people listening at home why people would rather be out in the cold than stay over at the mission?
People suffer from social anxiety disorder, so they can't deal with a lot of people. They're crammed in a room, like mats are literally touching each other, so you roll over in the middle of the night, you're waking up on somebody else's mat. They are faith-based, so if you have or you prefer a different type of religion and you don't partake into their religious indoctrination that they want to push upon you, they don't want you in the shelter. If you are a gay and lesbian couple, they have issues with that. They separate couples simply because they're not married. When the time that you need your significant other the most, they're separating them, and they're not doing exactly the type of things Jesus would do. They speak about what would Jesus do, but they're not living by his examples that he told us in many of his books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They all say to respect and take care of your fellow man, regardless of any plights or indiscretions you might not agree with. They tell us to remove the plank from our own eye before we judge our fellow man, but so many of us are quick to judge our fellow man, not knowing their life story. And places like faith-based places like the Mission actually take more of a toll on the homeless community and make life harder for them instead of easier.
So I wanted to ask you, kind of like as somebody who's organized around this issue before, and I know you were involved. You were at the churches through the week. What did you think about how it was really just a lot of grassroots organizers who ended up putting these emergency shelters together, between like the FCC and the First Baptist Church. And how do you think, what lessons should we take from that, think about in the future when we run into a crisis like we did last week?
To organize the same way. We all are a community, and even though people are homeless or whatever, don't discredit them, because there were a lot of homeless individuals that jumped in spots where we didn't have volunteers that were able to help a lot more because they knew people in the community. They were able to de-escalate situations, and they rolled their sleeves up and they really got in there and helped out. So when people say that homelessness is a choice, people just want to be lazy or they want to be addicted to drugs, so why should we help them? And it's actually people, when they show kindness and compassion to others, that those people don't feel lost and lonely anymore. And those are things that I noticed at the churches when we were organizing, as the people were treated with compassion, kindness, and love, the same way everybody really wants to be treated. And that's not the way staff treats people at the Mission. Mm-hmm. Once you go in there, you're looked at like a second-class citizen. So, there's so many stereotypes behind homelessness that it's put a sad taste or a bad taste in everybody's mouth. But people were learning that were coming down and volunteering that a lot of the stories they hear about the homeless community, about them being lazy and not doing anything, they found that to be not completely the case or not true at all.
Yeah, I know. I kind of said the other day through my social media, I mentioned that one of the top requests I got when I was working overnight at the churches was, wake up calls for work. A lot of questions and asks for can you wake me up for work? Can you wake me up for this job interview? Can I get some help getting to this job? Et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of people really underestimate how much of the working poor has to live without an actual roof over their head.
Right. And to me, I think that is the hugest oxymoron that we even have in this country. That term, the working poor. Because if you're working, why should you be poor? You're working. You're putting in your hours. You're working 80. People are working 40, 60, 80 hours a week just to make ends meet, and according to our Constitution, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But most people can't pursue happiness because they're busy working 80, 90 hours a week just so they can put food on their table and a roof over their head. They're lucky if they can pursue a 15-minute nap before they go to their next job, let alone happiness.
Yeah, well, that's definitely on point, Carl. That is true. So, I think one of the things that was really revealed in last week. I really like to point out to people, when I talk about it being really the grassroots that was around this, it kind of found county and city more or less like playing hot potato over whose job it was to respond to this emergency weather.
Yeah, and the city really did nothing. It was the city helped a little bit with a little bit of money they did. But like you said again, it was basically a grassroots movement from the citizens of Kalamazoo and the community of Kalamazoo and people like Shannon Sykes and Shannon Sykes' parents, Carol and Dave Heflin, that made sure people ate, Rebecca Lynn, Nathan Dannison from the church, you yourself were there, other members from the community, a young lady named Virginia Durst, her and her mom, they're big activists. They came down and helped out. So it was the community more than it was anybody from the city or county. Shannon Sykes did her part, helping a lot, as well as did Eric Cunningham. He was helping to transport people with his vehicle and stuff. So a couple of members from the community stepped in. Don Cooney came and helped as well. So a few people from commissioners stepped in and said, you know what, we're in this, we're doing this political thing for people. That's why we got into politics, to help the people that don't have a voice for themselves. So it was those people, the real, social justice warriors that actually rolled up their sleeves and put their money where their mouths were. They weren't just talking about it. They were being about it. So that makes a big difference. And if you get into politics simply for a paycheck and not for actually helping the community, then you're getting into politics for the wrong reason. I feel that about any profession. If you're going into the mental health field, if you're doing it for a paycheck instead of the people you're trying to help, you're doing those jobs for the wrong reasons. You got to want to volunteer and put your time into those kind of positions without expecting any pay in return, because sometimes the love of the people can be better than a paycheck. Yeah, it might not feed you, but at the end of the day, you were there for the right reasons.
Yeah, I really, I couldn't agree with you more on that, Carl. So, that's very true. And I think like anybody who didn't get a chance to volunteer down there, there were some definite, just on a personal level, it did feel very good to be like kind of that sense of community and solidarity. However, at the same time, I think there was also a frustration that it goes even back to some of your original demands when we were organizing around the occupation of Bronson Park. The city really dropped the ball when it came to having a municipal shelter. That was one of the top short-term asks that you guys were demanding. I was curious, has there been any behind-the-scenes motion that I haven't noticed on that? Do you think this would be a good opportunity to put pressure on the city to finally get that done? How do you see that, Carl?
I think both of them need to be involved. We need to pressure the city and the county more to create a better, better secular structure that works for all of the homeless in the community. And I think we need to remove these secular shelters out of the hands of private owners that are benefiting off of the plight of homelessness and create shelters that actually belong to the community. The community works with, the community helps put in the money, things like that, things that are actually owned and operated somewhat by the citizens of Kalamazoo instead of private owners. And I think that would make a bigger difference, and you'd see a large part of the homeless community slowly diminish because We can create jobs that way. We can create jobs in a kitchen staff for people to help get them on their feet that are staying there at the shelter. You know, we can get funds and grants and help to do these things. You know, we can, we got to at least make an attempt to try to fix these things, because every achievement begins with the willingness to try. And we do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. They are difficult. And that's what we are as Americans. That's who we've always been. We've always been the country that set a standard for others, but we've fallen short on that for the past 40 years. I'd say that we've really dropped the ball in the last 4 decades of who we used to be as a country.
And I think you can. We were talking a little bit about Mr. Lewis Powell earlier on the show, but yeah, a lot of that the making America not so great. It was definitely a lot of the billionaire class taking away a lot of our social services and whatnot. But before I go,
agree.
Yeah.
We lowered the taxes on them way too much, and we've given them back way too much, and they're not putting anything in, really.
No.
They're reaping all the benefits, and meanwhile, the citizens and the people that are actually working and creating this wealth for them are the ones suffering in the long run. I mean, back in the 70s, you know, I wasn't born back then, but I've done a lot of reading and research, and, you know, you had at least one parental figure at home all the time, so the kids had a better structure. They weren't being taught by the television and the internet. You know, we had more respect for our elders, and the community in whole. You know, it took a village, so the neighbors were watching out for each other, even if the kids didn't belong to them, you know, and we've lost that sense. We've lost the sense of unity in the community, which that's the most important part of a community, is the unity. People forget that so often.
They really do. And, you know, I think, you know, the crisis situations like last week can help bring it out, but we really need to make sure that we do that more long term, you know, checking in on your neighbor, whether they got a house or not, and not just when it's 40 below.
Right.
So we've probably got to go. I got another interview to play on the program tonight, Carl, but I wanted to make sure, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we moved on?
Well, one last thing I'd like to say, and I said it at the commission meeting, you know, there's a strong stereotype saying that drug use is the leading cause to homelessness. It's honestly exactly the opposite. Homelessness is usually the leading cause of drug use, because people are looking ways to medicate themselves and deal with their depression in their own way. So, yeah, homelessness, I would say, is the leading cause of drug use and alcoholism, because people are looking for ways to cope and deaden the pain that they feel.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you again, Carl, for coming on the show, kind of talk about how things went down last week and, you know, what we can do to take on these issues in the future.
Yes, sir, Andy. You have a great evening.
All right. You too. All right. Okay, listeners, when we come up next, we are going to have another very important interview. We're going to go to break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with Issa Smith, a local grassroots organizer who is looking down the barrel of eviction in less than 10 days. Y'all listen to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo.
It may not be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students. Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in the Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Hello, all y'all out there in radio land. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentle them. So, we are now going to go to an interview that I conducted with Issa Smith. Issa Smith is a long-time grassroots organizer here in Kalamazoo area, does a lot on behalf of animal rights, and has also worked with several activist groups, including Michigan United and some of the Code Blue emergency shelter that we were doing last week. So I wanted to broadcast this interview tonight because she is literally about a week and some change out from being evicted. This is a woman with 2 children, currently taking care of several dogs at her house. And as we're going to find out in the interview, she was in a situation where the group My Own Home, which is a subsidiary of Community Living Options, gave her home about several years ago in rather deplorable condition. She's taken her own time and her own money to get the house fixed up above and beyond what her own landlord was supposed to be responsible for. However, they are accusing her of essentially trashing her own house and have given her 10 days to get out of her home. And again, this is a woman with children and animals to take care of. So I'm going to go ahead and play the interview, but I just want to make sure to give y'all the context right out there out the gate. I also will let you know that this interview flowed pretty freely while I was taking a tour of the house, so we are going to skip around a little bit and hit on the important points. So we're going to start here at around 4:20 to talk a little bit, 4:20, talk a little bit about the deferment of responsibility when it comes to this home. Thing of what the responsibility of them was and how they
everything that's wrong with this house was the landlord's responsibility. Yeah. Not a single thing in here was my responsibility. I didn't put any holes in the walls. I didn't damage anything. I didn't mess up the electrical work. I didn't put I didn't make it so there wasn't any ground wiring in here. Yeah. I didn't make the roof leak. They had replaced one part of the roof. They were supposed to replace the whole roof, but they didn't want to put the money into it. This was a couple years back before I moved in here. I guess, from what I understood, they replaced the back part of the roof, but they never replaced the front of the roof. So not only was the basement constantly flooding, we lost all of our clothes in the basement, all my paperwork, documents, everything, because I didn't know the basement flooded. So I put everything in the basement. Thinking, oh, hey, I'll just put it in a shelf. Yeah, biggest mistake. Yeah. So the ceiling started flooding. The toilet was overflowing. Literally, if you flushed even the smallest amount of toilet paper, it was overflowing because the pipes are so bad. Yeah. And then I found out that the flap in the back of the toilet was rotted. So it's all moldy. When you open up the back of the toilet, it's just it's horrible. So when you flush it, the flap wasn't sticking. So it was literally overflowing from the back and the bowl of the toilet.
Oh my God.
So it was coming, all of it was coming out into the kitchen. Yeah. So then I had to go and purchase chloride to eradicate the mold and everything else. It's just been...
it sounds like most of the work you've had to put in has been directly to it's like a health and safety stuff. Yeah. It should be worth mentioning. It's you've got a few kids that you're raising here.
I'm raising 2 disabled kids and I have therapy dogs. My kids were constantly sick. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars at the health food store because every time I took them to a conventional doctor, all they wanted to do was...
All right, we're going to skip ahead a little bit, talk a little bit more about the conditions in the home.
rental company to verify and do professional environmental testing. And I hired a master electrician to do the testing to verify that there's no ground wiring, that at any point in time this house could go up in flames.
Yeah, so you've had a city inspector and you've had basically like, a health inspector in, and just mention anybody else that I forgot to mention.
I've had numerous agencies in.
Yeah. And so what was the response of CLO / My Own Home? Is that?
Yeah.
What was their response to that? You've been engaging these complaints, and again, this all came about because you're being threatened with eviction. It sounds like it's going through.
So I have to be out by the 10th. I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And every program I've asked for help states that I have to be homeless, which then, of course, I'm gonna lose my kids. My therapy dogs are gonna put down. I mean, I was on 16 different medications. I'm only on 5 now because of my therapy dogs. Like that's my whole life. Like I would do anything for my family, and so I found out from community mental health and other agencies that I have to be homeless.
So that's just it's a really horrible bureaucratic loophole, but basically what you're saying is kind of the nonprofit structure that we've got here in town. If you are not already because you are literally in imminent danger of becoming homeless with
I'm not just in imminent danger. I mean, this whole house is full of asbestos. We've been living with it crumbling off the ductwork and everything for 5 years. I can only imagine what residual health effects my kids have had. We've had tons of sinuses issues, colds, upper respiratory infections. But my biggest concern is, am I at risk for mesothelioma? I mean, and I was never told that there was asbestos in the house legally through OSHA laws. The landlord of any home built before a certain amount of time frame, I think it's before the early 1960s, maybe 70s, has to be verified that there's a risk for asbestos in the home. They have to make you aware of it. I was never made aware of it. I was told that this house was condemned for meth, but when they had the people come in, supposedly that there was a suspicion of meth, but it was not verified that it was a meth lab, that they only found a couple bleach bottles in the basement. I didn't know anything about meth till I moved to the south side of Kalamazoo. I've lived a horrible life, but drug addiction was never anything I ever chose to be involved with. I had enough fight on my hands to save lives. Why I had an addiction to it on top of it.
And well, this kind of brings I'm sorry, do you have to deal with it? But brings me to another point. There's been a lot of talk lately, especially we just had that horrible cold winter week about we just need there's all these empty houses, we got to get them.
If it had been up to the landlord, they would have had me out and that homeless with my kids.
No, seriously, but I think this is another part of it where we've got this bureaucracy with. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to me that you have to wait until you are literally homeless in order to actually get these services.
When I'm literally homeless, but see, and then even if you're homeless, there's no duration of time here. Some agencies say you have to be homeless for a whole year before they'll help you. You have to be homeless. Other agencies, even when they say you have to be homeless, they don't give you a duration of time that you have to be homeless before they'll assist you. It could be anywhere from a week, a year, 2 years, depending on funding, how many homeless people before you. In that meantime, my therapy dogs, which keep me sane, have been put down or murdered, and my kids have been stolen away from they tell when I went to Community Action Agency and asked for rental assistance, they said that the amount of money that I bring in, which I only had 2 disability checks at the time, which was $1,400, they stated that was too much money in order to get assistance.
Man, yeah. And so
basically what it was is you have to be within a certain poverty level. I either make too much income, not enough. And then I've had officials in the town, even though there's laws against people preventing you from renting with therapy dogs and stuff, or the breed or anything, I've had certain officials in town and other agencies tell me, oh, well, get rid of your dogs or euthanize them. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's just there's supposed to be protection for that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and skip ahead real quick. So there's kind of two aspects to this story. One is that essentially running into all of these problems when you're at the point where you need help. You need assistance, but there's kind of these bureaucratic loopholes. When we were talking about that earlier, what she's really referring to is how so much of the nonprofit apparatus in this town is geared more towards basically crisis management rather than preventative care. Things you help people before they get to the point where they hit rock bottom, where they lose their home. However, when she does get to the point where she's going to be essentially homeless with several children and animals, that's the point where some of that crisis management can come in. So, again, we talk a lot on this show about holistic models, stopping these kind of issues and problems before they start. Let's go ahead and go back to the interview. I want to kind of focus, go to a part where we're discussing her attempts to get legal representation to help deal with this issue.
Was downtown. They used to let me sit in there, but I couldn't go to sleep as I walked the streets at night. Caseworkers tried to help, but every time certain caseworkers tried to help, they shut them down. There was with this housing situation, I've been to 6 different attorneys. Every attorney, once they found out that it was a nonprofit, they wouldn't help me with it. I had to do the court proceedings by myself. Legal aid wouldn't even touch it.
Jeez. Wow.
I had to do everything by myself because there's no assets for them. They're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah. Oh man. And just kind of like kind of point of clarity. So like I'm in this house. I'm looking around and seeing like how much work you've put into it to getting this place fixed up. What was My Own Home CLO's rationale for giving you this eviction when I'm just being in this house for like half an hour? I noticed like it definitely looks substantially better than the before pictures that you showed me.
So what it was is I was told before August 28th, which was city inspection, and told me that if I said anything or if I didn't fix the house before city inspection, that they were going to evict me. The landlord did the same thing 2 years ago. I spent $2,000 2 years ago fixing this place. And the city inspector, even on the report, I have it marked what I fixed and what they fixed. If I could get a report from the city inspector, he actually shook my hand and said, "Miss Smith, you did an amazing job fixing this home." I'm like, that's pathetic. I fixed your home. So literally I stayed up for a week straight painting the walls, doing everything. And then the city inspector comes in and tells me, "Oh, well, I'm not an interior decorator, so I can't judge a house decorated as long as all that." Like it wasn't addressing any of the safety issues or the mold or the gutted sink that he saw and opened up and said it was fine. And all the mold, you could smell it. It reeked. It was awful. And so when she came a week before city inspection this last year of 2018, August 28th, she told me that if I didn't fix the house or if I said anything to the city inspector about the conditions of the home, basically I was to not even follow them around. I wasn't to be anywhere near anything, basically.
So this is My Own Home.
Yes.
Telling you that you should not interfere with the city inspection. That almost sounds like a veiled threat.
It was a threat. I had the landlord show up at my house at 7:53 in the morning threatening me. She was continuously dropping by. She even dropped by my house personally and said, "Oh, did you get the letter? You better be out by such and such a date or this is what I'm going to do." I don't care if you lose your kids. I don't care about that. That's not my problem. You shouldn't have opened your mouth. You should have just stayed quiet. So the thing is that city inspection, when they came for city inspection, everything was torn apart. We were fixing everything. Brand new sinks, brand new cupboards, brand new literally everything. Brand new front door, brand new back door, everything. I mean, there's no door handle on this back door right now. So when you go outside, you look, there's no door handle. So I have to keep that door locked and barricaded at all times so nobody can try to break in the house.
And like what really strikes me is like so often like the argument is it's like, oh, we've got these nonprofit orgs around here that help deal with these issues. When we raise issues like housing and homelessness and
these
stuff
nonprofits,
like that.
Malachi Barrett did an article in the nonprofit. It states me stating that I don't trust nonprofits around here. I just dealt with another nonprofit who called CPS on me and said that my kids were acting like they were starving, that I was living in a condemned house, that I didn't have any consumers. So a week before Christmas, this nonprofit, this lady that works for Housing Resources, she's a nonprofit here in town, tried to get my kids taken away a week before Christmas. We went to a Christmas party. She said my kids acted like they were starving. They had a huge taco bar. Anybody knows if you got a free thing, don't necessarily have your kids eat a ton when you go, because and you know they're gonna give food away. Who's not gonna take good
and just
food?
Speaking personally, just full disclosure, I've done some activism and organizing with Issa, and her kids just always love free food. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead again real quick. This is gonna be me kind of asking more about the just the concrete conditions of the house when she arrived and moved in. Peel back just to get some real hard details here on, we were talking a little bit earlier when I came in. What were some of like the most egregious things you noticed when you first moved in? And I've got like a stack of photographs that shows this, that were like the most kind of dangerous, like health code violation type stuff when you originally moved in. Because I think that, and just for me, like editorialize for a second, there's been a lot of talk about how we need to get a mechanism to get these empty houses out to people. But I think it's also important to understand we need an independent apparatus to make sure that these houses are safe.
So this house, it would probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally. The house has asbestos, it has mold. It was a former meth house. You're talking... I've had to remediate this house. When I moved in, it had roaches, it had mice. I've paid for all of that to remediate it. I got rid of all of my furniture. I got rid of everything because the place was infested. I can't have that around my kids.
Yeah.
So, it just wasn't safe. When I move here, our brand new beds are going to go in the garbage because of all the mold and the asbestos and the meth and just the dust and everything. You can't take that, you can't. It's bad. I feel bad enough having, I wash their sheets constantly and they have protection over their bed protection over their mattresses, but it doesn't matter. All that stuff collects to those fibers. You can't get that off.
Yeah.
And it seeps through that plastic. It's just not safe. So those all have to go in the garbage. So I have to be out of here by the 10th or the 14th of this month. I have 10 days to find a new place to live. And every program and every avenue that I've gone down has turned me away. I'm disabled. I'm raising 2 disabled kids. I have therapy dogs. But either the criteria is either I don't make enough, I make too much, I have to be homeless, I have to have this medical issue or that medical issue or something in order for them to help.
Yeah. Oh, man. And
so, I'm a single disabled mom with PTSD, ADHD, and ADD, raising 2 high-maintenance disabled kids. I don't have a driver's license. I walk everywhere. He's not here. Basically, they miserably failed city inspection, of course, because the house was so bad. So the city inspector didn't direct his attention to the landlord at all. He asked me questions. He asked me about the outlets. He asked me why the outlet in the dining room was blown out. And I said, well, I turned it on one night and it shot flames and fires and blew the outlets and the light cover off of it.
I think you mentioned earlier that this is like the original wiring in the house, which is gotta be close to 100 years old.
Yeah, I think it was built in 1904, if not sooner. I'd have to check the exact dates on the address, but it's definitely late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah. So when you plug stuff in, I've burned out so many radios. We've tried to put 3 different dryers down in the basement. I've been electrocuted severely. Plugging stuff in. My kids have been electrocuted. We got to the point where I had to put surge protectors and extension cords and everything because I wouldn't let my kids touch anything. Our radios, TVs. 3 different dryers we've gotten, even brand new. We put in the basement and have smoked and gone up in flames, literally. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? Is there something? I thought I was doing something wrong. The basement stays flooded. We didn't have any hot water for a whole year. They just put a new water heater in October. But when I hired the electrician to come in, he verified 3 weeks previous that the water heater didn't work at all. So, and the pictures are completely corroded. So I was boiling water to bathe my kids. And I had agencies and different people calling them. And I just got to the point where it didn't matter. Basically, if you keep bugging somebody when you already know they're threatening to evict you, it's just going to go that much faster. And without having any other place to go, you get to the point where you just, whatever. I literally, all the repairs that I did, like the sink and the plumbing and the electrical work in here, I had to pay out of pocket for all that. I paid $1,000 to a repair guy to do all that.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you it's kind of like the same question, but I was wondering maybe think about 2 different angles. So the main question is what needs to be done, And like, I kind of want you to answer that as like Issa, the community organizer, and Issa as the mom who's about to get kicked out in 10 days. Like, you know, kind of like
in the winter time.
Yeah.
We don't know if the weather is going to go right back to what it was with sub-zero temperatures. So, I mean, all these people are freezing and dying. Well, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean,
it really should be illegal to evict anybody in the winter. I mean, what if the weather comes? What if we get like a polar vortex like condition?
Yeah, in the next week, we don't know because with everything going on, we have no idea. I mean, the weather may. I mean, it may be fine right now, but it's Michigan. So changes in 2.5 seconds.
So like big picture, like how do we as a community keep stuff like this from happening? And also just what do you need like in the immediate sense from the community? Like what do you need help with?
So like my immediate sense is honestly, I'm tired of renting. Yeah. We really want a home of our own where we don't have to worry we're going to be evicted again. I mean, there's people that have homes that are just sitting there that would be willing to sell them dirt cheap or to a single disabled mom, somebody that's legit. I said, I'm just so tired of, you know, like when people say, hey, what do you need? You tell them, then they give you their garbage. Like I'm some charity case, like left over. I mean, the first experience I really had with that was when my older son was born. This lady bought me the crappiest stroller and car seat ever and brought it in. It was dirty and filthy. She's like, oh, you should just be grateful for having something. I said, I don't want that. I said, I'd rather go without than take your trash that you got out of a dumpster somewhere. I'm like, I have more respect. So I went and hauled butt and got what my kids needed new.
Yeah, just because people are in need doesn't mean they have lower standards. I think one of the things that impressed me the most about last week when we were doing the code blue stuff is like we all literally just pooled our money together and like got those folks like new boots, new tents.
Yeah, so I was able to raise $300 in Walmart gift cards. Yeah. So literally in 10 minutes, I called Walmart and said, hey, this is the situation. Shaver Road was really, really nice. They normally, because they're technically portage, they don't donate in Kalamazoo. Yeah. But they were willing, Danielle, out in Shaver Road, she's the manager out there.
I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit.
She donated that. So I mean, my main thing is we need a place to live that's decent. We have therapy dogs. We need a home with a yard, decent, nice, that's suitable, that's warm. That's not a crap hole. I mean, every house we've lived in this town has either been condemned, shut down, torn down, or this. And the thing that concerns me the most is community living options / my own home. Director Fiorella Spravelli gonna turn around, kick me out, and re-rent this place. That's what I want to know. But this needs to be stopped. Like Dana Nessel, the Michigan Attorney General, this needs to be brought to her attention. You're talking about a disabled family. These people only rent to disabled people. We can't fight back. I've been to numerous attorneys, they won't touch them. So they're literally getting away with this over and over and over again. And then part of their program, even in their written statements, is that they're offering a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for suitable, safe housing, and then they teach their tenants routine home maintenance. I didn't realize there are responsibilities as disabled tenants to do routine home maintenance.
Has anybody actually came in to teach you maintenance?
No.
No. I kind of figured, but
nobody taught me anything. I mean, the shower, literally a couple years ago, the whole entire shower literally fell down. They came in. They literally did a half-jack job, the maintenance guy did, because they didn't want to put the expense in it, what needed to be done. Then the tub leaks. I mean, we just put all brand new ceiling tiles. Within 3 days, the sink and the tub. I had to replace the plumbing upstairs. I was taught how to do some plumbing, so I was able to put new plumbing up in the sink because it was just pouring water. I mean, once you do we haven't officially done a walkthrough of this house, but once you do the walkthrough and you actually physically see everything besides the pictures, what I've done and what still needs to be done, this house... all the ductwork needs to be redone to get the asbestos out. I mean, everything. The mold, the meth. You know, I mean, I've eradicated the mice and the roaches, but I mean, I'm tired of living like this. I shouldn't have to live like this. I mean, I pay $700 for this 3-bedroom crap hole, horrible house. And that's literally, at any given time, I'm investing another $500 or $600 a month into the flooding, into the bugs, into the mold, into, you know, us being sick. So literally every penny that we have no extra to do anything. Literally. It's all in paying rent, the utility bill. I pay the utility bill. I'm responsible for all snow removal, all of replacing fire alarms, lawn care. I'm responsible for everything. I have to provide my own fridge, my own stove, everything.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I provided everything. I'm responsible for everything and provided everything.
Yeah, I should mention, too, like, that's not a condition. Even if you're, like, renting a property, say, like, my own property in the Vine neighborhood came with stove and a fridge and all that stuff, and I was not at need or disabled, so yeah.
I mean, I'm responsible for all the snow removal, sidewalk, everything. I do not pay garbage. They wanted me to pay water, but I told them, I said, I'm already paying too much already. You're paying water, I'm not paying the water. I said, I'm not doing it. So I forced them to pay water, even though it stated that I was supposed to pay. I said, no. So you already have me paying $700 a month. And all whatever little rest of my money, I don't get any food stamps, so I have to buy food. You know, I mean, I bring in roughly around $2,000 a month, but $2,000 minus $700, that leaves you little like $1,400, if that. And then you've got my utility bill, which in this house, because of the conditions, is anywhere from $100 to $500-$600 a month in this place in the wintertime. And then I have to buy all my own food. And basic needs, cleaning supplies, laundry, soap, clothes. I mean, we're barely basic living. But because I navigate and am resourceful and barter services, I make basic ends meet.
And
it's so stressful.
I really do want to point out too, like, you know, one of the big like talking points from some people has been like, oh, we've already got structures in the community to deal with these problems. Like when that's when they're talking about like there's resources for housing in the community. This is what they're talking about. This is the nature of it. You know, it is grossly inadequate.
There is not any service. You have to jump through so many hoops to get those services. I mean, it's crazy. It's just very discouraging. And then, of course, when you go to these nonprofit agencies, other than the Kalamazoo Humane Society, I mean, Aaron Winter saw us living in the most deplorable conditions. Not one time did he ever threaten to call CPS on me. He said, Issa, what do you need? What can we do to make your situation better? You know, there was no judgment. There was no, she's a terrible mom because she's living in this camper. I mean, my dog, I was dealing with a domestic violence situation. My dog was slung 12 and a half feet and landed on a stump. My ex ended up with 2 felony animal cruelty charges, but he didn't go to prison for it. He didn't even get a week in jail for it.
All right, I'm going to skip ahead one more time and see if I can find where it starts. Hold on just a sec. Again, what do you think would be a solution so like this doesn't happen to other people in the future? What is a solution that does not run into these bureaucracies?
Kalamazoo City officials, the whole entire system needs to be revamped. Dana Nessel needs to come in here and do a whole entire revamp of everybody. She needs to get rid of all of the officials that we have right now. Other than the decent one, like Shannon Sykes. I mean, Shannon has her challenges. She's not by far perfect, but she has put every ounce of energy and strength and literally dragged herself crazy trying to make a difference. And everybody that she thought had her back keeps bucking her and throwing her underneath the train. And she feels like, what difference can I make? And she's made so many differences. She really has, and she's worked really, really hard. I hate to see whether she isn't going to run again, but I completely understand if she doesn't, because, you're in a losing situation. I think, like, that, and I would definitely say all those other compassionate, radical leftists, it's time to step up. We've got an election coming up. So the bottom line is just people need to come in and revamp everything. We need a new city commissioners. We need people that really have some idea of what their job is to help. Your job isn't to sit behind some little podium and be like, what? And then turn around and walk away. You were hired and elected by the people for the people. That is their job, to help us and make a difference and listen to us. And the almighty dollar has consumed their eyeballs. So, the bottom line is I need a new home. We've lost all of our furniture. We've lost literally everything. We need a yard that's fenced in. You know, we need people to step up and say, hey, Issa, what do you need? New furniture, whatever. I've never had new furniture. I've never had a new bed. I've had a couple things, but my kids have never lived in a decent place. They've lived in nothing but crap holes because of Kalamazoo City. Kalamazoo City is who condemned my last house, tore it down because the guy was bucking Kalamazoo City and didn't want to comply with the permits and left us in a camper in -20 below 0 with no heat, running water, or electricity. That was the winter. I've been here in this house 5 years. I have forked out almost $43,000 in rent into this house. That could have bought me a decent place. Or at least a down payment to a decent place.
Yeah.
That's not counting the tens and hundreds of thousands of gazillion. I don't even want to think about how much money I forked out in this place. I can't even calculate. I mean, just this last thing alone.
So I think we're going to go ahead and leave the interview there, but I did want to reiterate, if you have any capacity, if this struck a chord with you, this story, Issa Smith can be contacted on Facebook. That's ISSA, and then Smith, SMITH, and particularly, the two main asks that are coming from her right now are legal representation and, in far more short term, finding a new home. Again, 2 children, several dogs, and trying to find a place. I believe she said within the $700 to $900 range. If anybody out there knows their Kalamazoo housing and can reach out and help out, well, that's something that you can do. So, and also anybody who's willing to, serve as legal representation, that's also a thing that can happen. So, we're going to go ahead and end the show right now. This has been the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. As always, you can find our episodes on YouTube after the fact. And until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.